Palestinian mosque, killing 2 civilians. Now, this comes as the pro-Bashar al-Assad forces ramped up their efforts to wipe out ISIS presence near the Syrian capital. Russian military officials say both militants of both ISIS and the al-Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front have entrenched in the Yarmouk camp. And still ahead this hour of One America News, light-adapting contact lenses are set to hit the market in the near future. More on the world's first transition lenses, plus the staff at an Australian cafe into the shop's efforts.
The joint venture between Britain and France has taken 14 years and $2 billion to develop its highly complex technology. At twice the speed of sound, Concorde's airtime is half that of any other jetliner. The Delta Wing Beauty is in a class by itself, at a more than first-class price, of course. However, it would take more than a year to clear landing rights in New York, where most flights were to be directed. And cost factors now indicate no more Concordes will be built after the original fleet of 14 is retired sometime in the mid-1990s.
I have suffered my whole life with muscle cramping. When I tried Therwix, all the cramping went away. I initially applied it at the bottom of my foot and my thigh, and right away I was able to sleep through the night. Therwix is definitely a breakthrough. It's a little miracle. I can cook again. I can sit at my computer for 8 hours a day with my mouse and typing, and I don't hurt.
Therwix Relief is my choice for preventing and relieving muscle cramps. Make it yours too.
Get Therwix Relief today at TherwixRelief.com.
Here on this show, we're not afraid of the truth.
One America News' very own conservative firebrand, Liz Wheeler,
They pretend to promote women's rights, but they're liars.
exposes underreported stories.
If this happens, we will expose this.
Stories no one else has the courage to cover.
Story the mainstream media refuses to cover. They won't touch it.
Stories exposing the issues that mean the most to you. Don't miss Tipping Point, weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific.
Welcome back. Sub-Saharan Africa could see historic economic growth this year despite rising prices. Pascal Davies has more in the World Bank's predictions.
These shoppers in Ghana have all the reason to be spending their money on colourful delicacies. The World Bank says growth in Sub-Saharan Africa is projected to reach 3.1%. Pace. The report says Kenya, Senegal and Rwanda are seeing an uptick this year. It also expects Ethiopia to be one of the fastest growing countries in the world. But the World Bank warns that the main risk to growth in the region is the possibility of a collapse in commodity prices, along with a slowdown in China being a likely cause due to interest rate hikes or trade tensions with the United States.
The FDA approves the first transition contact lenses. Earlier this month, the FDA announced the Light Intelligence lenses, which will darken when in the sunlight and can be used for nearsighted or farsighted users. The contacts will be available as soft lenses and can be worn daily for up to 2 weeks. The makers say the gray tint may be slightly visible on people with colored eyes, while there won't be a noticeable difference on people with dark eyes. The lenses will be available to buy early next year. That's pretty cool. After 9/11, and it would turn out to be a tragic ending for the athlete on this day in 2004 when he was killed in Afghanistan. Here's more on how his death became more than just a casualty. It became a controversy.
Like many Americans, Pat Tillman was greatly impacted by the events of September 11, 2001. The difference was that Tillman was a football star, the Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year at Arizona State, and soon after, a record-setting safety for the Arizona Cardinals. Tillman was in line for a lucrative contract extension in 2002, but with 9/11 in his mind, he turned down a multi-million-dollar offer and joined the Army with his brother Kevin. The Tillmans were assigned to the 75th Ranger Regiment in Fort Lewis, Washington. The brothers completed tours in Iraq in 2003 and in 2004 shipped out to Afghanistan. On this day in 2004, Pat Tillman was killed by gunfire while patrolling a rugged area in the eastern portion of the country. But that's not where his story ends. The Army initially reported Tillman and his unit were ambushed by enemy forces. But several weeks later, Tillman's family learned his death had been the result of friendly fire. His parents publicly criticized the Army, believing their son's death was covered up to support wars in the Middle East. Tillman's brother Kevin testified at an Oversight and Government Reform Committee hearing and offered a scathing analysis.
To our family and friends, it was a devastating loss. To the nation, it was a moment of disorientation. To the military, it was a nightmare. But to others within the government, it appears to have been an opportunity.
An investigation was launched into the handling of Tillman's death, and in 2007, the Army censured retired three-star General Philip Kensinger for lying to investigators. A handful of other high officials and officers received memorandums of concern for acting improperly in the case. While Tillman's death is shrouded in controversy, his legacy is not. The Arizona Cardinals and Arizona State Sun Devils have retired his number and dedicated sections of their stadiums to him. And a highway bypass around the Hoover Dam has a bridge that bears his name.
The owner of a restaurant in Western Sydney is trying to change the way deaf people are perceived and treated in his establishment. Here's more on his efforts to welcome the deaf community.
For people who can hear, communicating with others is as simple as opening their mouth and making understandable sounds. For deaf people who live in a world vastly populated by hearing people, it's a more complicated story. Rayon Hoblos, who was born deaf, says it's especially frustrating for the simple things in everyday life, like ordering a coffee.
Hearing people don't have sign language, they don't know Auslan, there's lots of communication breakdown. Deaf people face a lot of barriers and it's really hard for them.
Auslan is an Australian Sign Language dialect derived from British Sign Language. Some of its signs are unique to Australia. The owner of Rashay's restaurant in Punchbowl has asked Hoblos to teach Auslan and general sign language to his staff.
It wasn't an idea before I met this customer. I don't think people understand the severity of being able to communicate with everyone and how important it is.
Learning sign language isn't as difficult as hearing people may imagine at first.
Sometimes it'll take a couple of weeks, like learning facial expressions, learning the language. It's not hard. It is an easy language to learn.
The restaurant's idea is a rarity for the moment, but the hope is it will inspire other businesses to follow suit.
As a deaf customer, even if the wait staff can just, say hello, I think it's going to make a huge impact. And I think it really increases a person's enjoyment.
I just think it's so good to encourage everybody out there in the community, and we will grow as a community.
The biggest wish for Hoblos is that this local effort will spread far and wide, changing people's behavior one sign at a time.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson responds to a Minnesota teen's prom proposal with a big surprise. Katie Kelsenberg asked the actor and former pro wrestler to the big dance in a tweet, dressed in a similar outfit that he wore in his earlier career. In a response on Instagram, The Rock said he will be unable to make it as he's currently filming a movie. However, he surprised a teenage girl by renting out an entire theater for her and 200 of her friends so she could watch his new film, Rampage, with all the popcorn and soda they can eat. The 17-year-old says she was surprised by the gesture, adding she appreciates how Johnson connects with his fans. What a fun story to end on. But with that, we are all in time for this hour of One America News. Thanks for catching up with me this Sunday evening. And to stay up to date, you can follow me at my Twitter. To learn more about our station, you can visit our website at OANN.com. And as always, stay tuned and thanks for